Good morning, good afternoon, or whatever time it happens to be in whichever country you happen to be in, because apparently that's how broad we are now. Carla, Susahash, how's the week been for you?
Hey, it's been great. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, it's been good. Um, this week, our other main coach and my business partner Emery took off, so it was more than one business for me to run on my own. So
And
That's
let
always
me
nothing
just
to
fun.
say,
complain about here.
I was gonna say, let me just say, it's very upsetting that Emery is not here for a change. I mean,
Yeah,
I get tired of carrying the conversation with him most of the times that we're on stream together, so it's nice to have a change.
yeah, definitely. I definitely won't meet up with him. Like this is definitely going to be a lot more disappointing than when he's here, but we'll try our best.
We will absolutely do our best, and I think that between the group of us, we can definitely talk more than enough to compensate for the lack of Amory this week.
Yeah.
Carla, do you want to go through the agenda, sort of the quick overview of what we're doing today?
Sure. So, for those that did join in last week, you would have seen that we gave a challenge to all of our EIRs to focus on personal branding for this week. I've had a few conversations with some of them, and I've seen quite a bit of content, which is exciting. So today it's not just going to be us talking. For once, we're going to bring up the EIRs again and just chat about the whole experience so far with putting themselves out there as a personal brand and doing videos and posting more stories and images on all different platforms. So it's really exciting to hear back from them and see how that went and potentially give some extra guidance and coaching on what they've experienced so far. So that's the main thing for tonight is we're going to check in with the rest of the team so everyone doesn't have to sit and listen to us as usual.
That's
Well,
exciting.
and I'm not a marketing person, which I think that I'm pretty explicitly clear about. Like, it's not my forte. It's not where I enjoy working. Like, I've done a little bit over the years, just because out of necessity, you have to sometimes. But
Mhm.
what are you kind of looking for from a marketing perspective from the EIRs, Carla?
Well, when it comes to personal branding specifically, it's just, like having a personal brand online and having a strong online presence for your business. That's almost like double trouble. And the big thing is that I want the EIRs to realize the power of personal branding just because people, when we tend to buy, we don't always realize it. But when you buy anything, people buy people first. So having a strong online presence just as yourself and as a person or as an entrepreneur, whatever you feel most passionate about and putting that out there, I want them to really see and experience the big impact that could have and definitely does if you do it well on your business. But it's also, I mean, being an entrepreneur is all about getting out of your comfort zone and pushing your boundaries and putting yourself out there. So it's quite exciting to see all of that happening.
And when it comes to sort of personal branding versus like a company branding, should they be separate? Should they be interlinked somehow? Especially for a lot of first time entrepreneurs, should your personal brand be representative of what you're looking to sell, or should there be some sort of division between the two?
I think it's personal preference. That's a conversation that I had with a few of the ERRs during the week. They weren't sure, like, should they use their personal Instagram or Facebook or TikTok accounts and just talking about business on there, or should they start new accounts? Um, so I think it's personal preference, honestly. But in my experience, I found it more impactful if I have my personal branding account or, just like my account for Carter that's focused on marketing and giving advice on the industry that I work in. And then people will automatically reach out, and then I can be like, oh, actually, this is my agency, and that way it impacts the business. But I guess at the end of the day, it just comes down to personal preference. However, my preference is to link the two together.
Hmm. Interesting. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Carla has a whole list of things that you were looking for. My metric and like my sort of scoring sheet on the other side is something a little bit different, right? Like my engagement level
Okay.
at this point is somebody that's just, I don't know what I'm looking for from a marketing perspective. I'm more so from tone, engagement, a bit of hook, something that I'm actually, invested in at some point, or something that kind of speaks to me at some point. Susahosh, where do you kind of sit on this as the technical hating marketing bandwagon that I'm on?
Yeah, so personally, I'm kind of in between, because I'm also not a like social media person. I kind of try to be. I'm an engineer. I'm a back-end engineer. I like to code behind the scenes and sit in dark rooms. But so that's the funny thing, because as an entrepreneur, you have to also put yourself out there, because you represent the brand. You represent kind of the the trust factor that Carla talked about. So it is important to kind of get out of your shell, put yourself out there. But yeah, it's a balance between putting yourself out there as far as you're comfortable, and then blending in with the business. So I personally, for Simera, I like to put the business first, and if someone is curious, they can still find me and put a face to the business. So I think that's also important.
Yeah, I think you're actually easier to find than I am at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I dislike social media so much for how outspoken I think that I am, that I've just avoided it for so long. And I mean, it's funny because I think that we talked about this a few weeks ago too, at least Em and I did, that I'd been avoiding personal branding for such a long period of time, mainly because like I never saw value in it for myself. I'm like, no, like I'm working for a company, and the success of a company is equally, if not better, than success as me personally, kind of thing. Has always been the perspective, which is, granted, for how many times I've done this, a little bit closed minded. So we're actively working on that. So thankfully, I'm looking forward to a whole bunch of free hourly office hours with Carla, so that she can help me figure out what the hell I'm actually doing.
I wouldn't say free, but we can negotiate.
Oh, come on. I'm almost offended at this point. I was going to plug the company you work for and everything. I've got hashtags
Oh,
ready.
well,
But now,
hashtag
no.
Status Society. No, but with the personal branding, the big thing that I noticed just in my experience is the type of content that goes out is, like, I obviously work in marketing, so I'll put out content that's majority like based on educating people in the industry to build that credibility, like, oh, this girl actually sometimes knows what she talks about. And then people will ask, like, oh, but do you actually work in marketing, or how can I work with you? So when it comes to personal branding versus the company's branding, on the company's branding and social media, you'll obviously like try and push your services or products a lot more and try and sell that. Whereas with personal branding, you basically have to sell yourself and the knowledge that you have. So that's why I like doing a lot of educational content, just to build up credibility. And there's a big surprise that I have that you guys don't know about.
Ooh.
But it is called Mind Fucked by Marketing, written by myself, coming out soon.
Wow.
My first
That's
book.
exciting.
That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
We're
so that's
excited.
really exciting. And like things like writing, if you're into it like I am, or using podcasts or YouTube channels, there's so many different things, or even blogs for people that might not be as comfortable on camera. There's so many other aspects of personal branding that will impact your business at the end of the day. So it doesn't mean that everyone has to become like a social media influencer or like super popular online. There's so many other aspects to personal branding.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting. I'm looking forward to your book.
Yes. This is the first time that I said it out loud, like publicly.
Wow.
Very few people
You
knew
actually
about
have it written,
but
right? Like, it's not just like the title and like it's on a big
no.
sheet of paper or something. It's just like, it'll get there eventually. It's fine.
Funny enough, the title came at the end.
Excellent.
That's why I say, like, oh, I accidentally wrote a book, because I started writing just a few blog posts for our website for the agency, and then I just got way into it. And I was like, okay,
Wow.
this is too long for a blog. Let's maybe do it like as a short ebook. And then it just went on and on. And I was just like, well, fuck it. We're writing a book now.
Oh, that's always fantastic. So as it
Yeah.
sits right now, we are currently waiting for EIRs to hop on, talk about the week, how it was going, where where the improvements are, what we can do next time, how uncomfortable it was, all of those fun things, because we currently have no EIRs backstage. So, I mean, we do have a couple ways this can go. We're either happy to sit and have conversations to go through stuff and talk about the experiences. The other option is Carla and I can sit and talk about literally anything for the next hour and a half. We can have Susa Hosh tell life stories, which is always interesting. There's always a way to go about everything. What was that?
Well, I mean, I see Rachel and Tula in the comments. So
Yes.
you guys, if you don't mind, please join backstage so you can bring you on and chat to you.
And it's so funny. I'm digging through my the drive right now because I know I did a whole presentation on our dry run of things about personas, engagement, customer journeys, and all that other fun stuff as well. Because that's always it's so funny. Like, that's my go-to presentation of like, oh, I need to fill time. Well, let me tell you about things that are in the design world that I genuinely try to avoid as much as humanly possible.
Well, if it's helpful, it's helpful. So
I like to think so. I mean, it's all about looking at things from a different perspective, right? I mean, it's the same way that when you go through marketing, you have those conversations. It's okay, well, how do we rebrand this? How do we position it differently? How do we go through, any of those permutations so that it's a little bit of a challenge? But we do have Rachel that has hopped back over as always. So I'm just going to bring them up here.
Awesome.
Yeah. Rachel, good morning.
Hello,
sorry, I had to remember where in the world you were for a second there. I'm like, yes, I think it's somewhere New York-ish. All right, same as me. Great.
Yeah.
Out of everyone, I think she's in the nicest place. Hashtag jealous. But it's fine. How have you been doing?
Good. Yeah, it's been good. Enjoyed the challenge. That's good.
I've seen quite a bit of good content from your side. So I think the first thing is just to hear from your side, like, how has it been? How did you experience it? Because I know that it's been quite a bit out of your comfort zone, and we had a few conversations about establishing exactly which platforms to focus on. So I'd just love to hear that same feedback to the rest of the people, basically. And after the conversation that me and you had, then what happened after that?
Yeah, for sure. So I chose to go with TikTok. I really don't like the sound of my voice on camera. So I think that was like a big barrier for me. It was just like, oh, this is like embarrassing. But I was just like, you know what? I just got to try it out, right? So I started actually a little bit before this past week, just posting a few videos where I'm actually talking. Most of the videos that I've done on TikTok in the past were just like shots of me like building boxes and stuff. So like no voice, like couldn't see my face or any of that. And I basically went off what you guys talked about last week with like the 4 E's of content marketing. And I personally really focus on the education part. For me, I just thought, if I'm going to go on here, I might as well try and provide value and like teach people something. Obviously for me, I feel like I'm still like such a newbie. So I'm like, I'm just going to teach people what I'm learning in the Darkhorse Accelerator, because I feel like that's like legitimately like real value there. So I've kind of just been taking a few like tidbits that I've been learning and just kind of putting them into like, 40-second-ish TikTok videos. And I posted, one per day. I think it's been going pretty well. I've gotten like a few new followers. I would say like the video views have gone up a little bit. Like it's still pretty small, but compared to the other videos that I posted, I was getting around like 50. Now I've been averaging around 150. So it's about 3 times as much. So it's still an increase, right? I think if I just stick with this past like this week, it might start to pick up a little bit too. So.
Great. And I mean, just from the content that I've seen from you, I don't know if it's maybe because I follow you on TikTok, but you've shown up on my For You page quite a few times, which is a great sign. And then obviously, like, the more people interact, the more it will show to other people. But really impressed with your content.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I have a question about the For You page. I see a lot of people do this. They'll add like the hashtag, whatever, FYP. Yeah, does that actually work? Is that like worth it to use that as a hashtag versus something that's more specific to the content?
It's debatable. I always use it, but just like as a maybe. But because it's one of the most popular hashtags, there's so many people that use it. Sometimes it's almost useless, but still, just like for the benefit of the doubt, I still use it. So I don't know. I can't really give you a solid answer, but I do use it. I would suggest when it comes to hashtags on TikTok specifically is balancing it, because it also limits you to the amount of characters you can type, whether it's your caption or your hashtags, everything together. So when it comes to hashtags specifically, I would try and do half of them, like specifically to your industry or product, and the other half like trending hashtags or sounds and stuff that's happening at the moment. But I wouldn't do like FYP, for you page, for you,
Right.
for you Canada, like that's too generic, and so many people look at those hashtags. So I would do a combination, because when you type in your hashtag, it shows you how many views that hashtag gets. So the top 3, I would do one with a lot of views, so something like for you, and especially if you want to do it location based, so for you Canada or for you New York, and FYP and for you page or whatever, but like 3 that are really trending big hashtags, but also mix it in with a few that get less views, and then over time you'll see what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
the TikTok algorithm honestly is so difficult to figure out and understand. So it's tough to give advice and tell you, oh, you have to do this and this and this, and it will definitely work. Because one day it might, and the next time you use exactly the same hashtags with the same type of video and nothing happens. But the big thing with TikTok, I'm happy to hear that you're posting once a day, which is great, a lot more than I am. But most people say that, like 2 to 3 videos per day is, like sort of the happy medium to really grow your account. So the more often you post, the better views you'll get.
Yeah, I've just been doing 1 per day so far, but I do think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think it will help me to
start with.
Yeah, to just batch make them. That way they're like ready to post. I think if I just like spend a couple days just making like a ton of videos that I actually feel confident enough to post, will help with that for sure.
Yeah. And just with your content specifically, I'll recommend playing around with different types of sounds. So just a hack on TikTok is, even if it is a video of you speaking, you can still put a sound in and you turn down the volume. So no one can hear the sound, but it's a trending sound. So your video will show up with that sound. So that might get you some extra views. And yeah, definitely pre-record, save them in your drafts, and then just go post. So it doesn't take so much time every single day. That would definitely work well for you. But with TikTok specifically, consistency is key.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like fun features too that I want to look into. I finally just figured out how to use the green screen. That's like the one feature I've done. But I've like looked, there's like so many different options. So I feel like there's definitely a lot of content I could make. I just need to get like used to it, I think, first. But yeah, I think posting every day, like this challenge, I think has helped just to even get in the habit of like thinking like, okay, you need to post something every day. So it's been good.
Yeah. And your Instagram, you've also posted a lot more on there, right?
Yeah, I posted it a couple times. I definitely still need to do it more. I've recorded a video. I just like haven't posted it yet because I tend to just overthink things.
Why?
I don't know. It's a little bit long. It was like 2.5 minutes, but it was kind of just me explaining like my change in business model and all that stuff. I feel like it's important to post, but it's like, way too long to put in stories. I'm like, oh, I don't know if it's going to be like good enough for the feed because it is a bit long. So I don't know. I might re-record it and try and like just tighten it up a little bit. So it's a bit shorter. But yeah, I've just been like,
could consider with, like longer videos, or if it's one topic, but you have quite a few things to say, then you can break it up into shorter videos and create a series on it. And on TikTok specifically, you can, like some people, you go into their profile, then you'll see in yellow, there's different series. So you'll say like Darkhorse, and under that specific tab, if people go in there, they can see all of the videos related to that specific topic. So I would recommend maybe taking longer videos, chopping them up into smaller bite-sized pieces, put it in a series, and the same on Instagram. You can't categorize them there, but you can just, like name them as episode 1 or part 1, part 2, part 3, but also just to not annoy people, in my experience or opinion, is Like, don't post part 1 today and next week part 2 comes, because then you're going to lose viewers.
Right.
So maybe it would be good to experiment, post one long video, see how that performs. The next week, do one long conversation or topic that you want to bring over, but break it up into chunks and see which performs better with your audience. And then you would know what would work well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't even know that they had that option, like to check the different series. Yeah, which is pretty. Yeah. I need to like play around with it more. I just feel like there's a lot I need to learn still, but
yeah. There's nothing wrong with spending a lot of time on social media. That's something I had to teach myself, especially because I work in the industry. Like, if you had to see my screen time and the amount of hours I spend on social media every day is insane. But it also depends on what you're looking at. So if you're looking at content that will actually benefit your business, it's not that bad. But if you're going to go sit and look at memes and whatever and stuff that's just random, then it's not the smartest move. But if you maybe just like give yourself 1 hour every day where you just sit down, and for that hour you're just going to scroll through different accounts and search different hashtags and get inspiration from there, that still counts as productivity if you're going to actually implement the things that you learn.
That's so true. I have all my apps set up to like lock me out after a certain amount of time, and I go over them like every single day. So I always like feel so guilty. But yeah, no, you're totally right. If it's like business related, it is different.
It just depends on the type of content that you're looking at. I mean, don't go sit and spend 5 hours on TikTok or on Instagram. That's not the most productive thing. But I think 1 hour per day is good, because in 1 hour, if you look at the right type of content, you can gain a lot of knowledge. And 1 hour out of 8 or 9 hours that you work per day is not that much. And you'll gain a lot of knowledge and inspiration from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Paul, Susaj, anything from you guys?
It's so funny because like I'm just sitting here enjoying the conversation. It's just like, yes, this is fantastic, because like I actively avoid TikTok, but it seems that for people that position properly on the platform, like there's huge upsides. How often content tends to go viral seems to be different on TikTok than other platforms. Like, in your experience, Carla, like, is that something that sort of seems accurate with what you're seeing on your side? Is that the virality of a lot of content just seems more heavy, I guess, on TikTok? Is that the right way to put it? Probably not.
TikTok's really such a difficult platform, to be honest. And I think that's maybe why a lot of creators that have made it on the platform encourage people to post like 2 or 3 times a day, because it's like playing a lottery. The more times you're going to enter, the bigger your chance is to win. And I think that's what counts with going viral. But there are small things that do contribute to the amount of views that you get, like using your own voice, or like certain sounds and hashtags and trends, or like filters and effects that people use. You can use that to manipulate it, but only to a certain extent. After that, I think because TikTok's so new, there's no one that can really call themselves an expert on the topic. And if anyone does call themselves an expert on the topic and they didn't create the platform, I wouldn't believe them, because it just changes so often. So it's really more just like, play and see what works, and just a lot of experimenting.
Awesome. I guess, Rachel, for your content moving forward, what do you want to keep on sort of like the Darkhorse path? Do you want to slowly transition into more about you? Do you want to sort of look at it as, how do you apply a bit of what we're doing, a bit of your own experience, into how you're building your business and how you can help other entrepreneurs? Like, where do you feel like you want to take it? Maybe not like the best way to do everything, but like what would make you the happiest, I guess, is the better question.
Yeah, I think in the future it'd be good to have a mix of something that's more, I guess, related to my business. It's just I feel like I'm kind of at like a bit of like a fork in the road right now. The business is kind of being taken in a different direction, and I feel like I'm not quite 100% ready just to like put everything out there yet, because everything is kind of still being built. And I literally just incorporated just got like the official papers like this week and stuff.
Hey, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, definitely eventually. I just feel like for now, and this is maybe just like my own confidence and insecurity. I kind of want to like just share content that I know is like legitimate and valuable. I don't want to just like go be the person that just goes out there and says stuff to like sound smart and knowledgeable, if you know what I mean. Like I feel like I still need to like gain a lot of experience before I can confidently say like, oh, this is how you grow a business, or this is how you do X. Whereas like right now, I feel like I'm just resharing, essentially curating content from things that I'm learning from people that I know are experts. So I just feel more confident like putting that out there in the world and saying like, no, this is how you do something. But yeah, obviously, like eventually, I hope that I will have that knowledge to share with others.
I think you make a great point where I feel slightly personally attacked in the midst of it, because I mean, even in the grand scheme of things, I have not assumed I'm an expert in anything for ever. Like I feel like very consistently I still have a whole bunch of imposter syndrome that happens. Like I can be confident in what I do. Like, yep, I can do spreadsheets like nobody's ever seen. How I build BI systems and logic models and all of that. Like, yeah, I can have confidence in it, but at the same point, like I don't think I've ever felt like I am the expert in a room whenever it comes to putting something together. And I don't know if that's just like my own thing, but like at a certain point, it's just, well, here's my experience. This is how I did it. This is how I have been miserable and suffering, or whatever it may be, right? Like that's sort of, maybe it's just 15 years of horrible life decisions of failing successfully has been where that came from on my side. But I've just read and suffered, honestly. It's kind of how I got to this point of like, this is how I think we should put stuff together. And I know the same's fairly similar for M as well. Susahash, does that seem accurate from your side?
Just about. You make mistakes and you learn, right? But one thing I was gonna add is that from especially something like branding yourself on social media, it's such a fine balance, because even those who brand themselves, their real life them and the actual people they are on social media are not always the same. So that's something I think to keep in mind. That said, I think being genuine is important. I like to be genuine, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to talk about everything. And some people do that, which is not I personally terrible. but it could be a fine balance between being genuine and putting yourself out there. And in terms of like the different platforms, you guys are right. Like you guys touched on it, and I kind of wanted to talk about it. That the being from a technology point of view, the way I see it is that as engineers, we continuously update a system, right? We change the algorithms, we change the things. That's the reason why like what worked last week is not going to work tomorrow, because things change, and essentially the engineers are trying to test something, and maybe something that worked is no longer going to work for you. So you have to also understand the system. You have to really be intimate with it. You have to just keep playing around, and that way you evolve with the platform. And so if you're starting off, it's like you're starting in the middle of a moving car, right? And you have to figure out how the parts work. Well, as you evolve with it, then you'll know exactly what's going on. So as something changes, you change yourself. So I think that's the trick, to be able to master these different platforms, and it's a never-ending journey, really.
That was a very like soul opening, very specific, deep, non-engineering answer from you, Susahash.
I try.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, great. Now when we need like deep and brooding, we're going to you at this point.
Well, I look at it from a holistic point of view, right?
And that's fair. So let me pose a question back to Rachel here, because it's been so interesting. Because like from my perspective, the return has been, you've had 3 times the views in a very short period of time, just by a bit of structure, maintaining consistency, and all these different things. And it was such a good question like 25 seconds ago, and then I've totally lost it in the midst of everything. How difficult do you think it would be on top of running your business? Because I know that yours is, especially early on, when it comes to boxes, there's a lot of work involved, right? Like even just the physicality of putting them all together, of having to manage customer relations and all of the bits and pieces that are associated with it, right? How difficult do you think it would be to maintain the marketing, to be able to push it a little bit forward? And how's the balance felt so far, I guess, so far, Rachel, in terms of like how many hours you have in a day? Because I know that I look like shit today because I was up till 4 o'clock in the morning working, and it's 11 a.m. when we start stream here. But how are you just sort of managing so far through the process? I guess is sort of the better question.
Yeah, I think just like batching the content, like just like focusing on a block of time and just saying this is what I'm going to spend this time on, and just kind of getting it all done at once, I find is a bit more helpful. Because yeah, especially like I have to put makeup on and I make sure like my hair looks nice. I have to make sure I'm like in front of the window so I have nice lighting. So it's like
I hear all of that. I got you.
it's like a lot of time just to even get like so that's how I found, like, once again, only been doing this a very short amount of time. But yeah, just like structuring the time. That's something that Carla mentioned. She's like, just like spend a couple hours and just, you have to kind of plan it out ahead of time too. So I'll usually just like write out like a little script. And I realized from doing those Loom videos that like I do read off the page and it looks so bad, like once people point it out. So I stopped writing out the script so like meticulously. Now I just write kind of like highlight sentences, and I kind of just make sure I mention them all so it feels a little more like off the cuff and more authentic. Which honestly almost makes it easier too, because I'm not like obsessing so much about exactly how to say it. Like I used to like refilm something so many times, even if I tripped on like one word. Whereas now I kind of just let it be. Like it just sounds more authentic in a way. So yeah, I would say it's been fine just with like a bit of pre-planning. But yeah, I mean, going forward eventually, I think it definitely will become difficult. Especially like posting every day. And if I end up doing multiple times a day, like it seems easy, but it is actually like pretty time consuming, even if it's like a 45-second video, especially by the time you like type out like all the text and stuff like that, which I know the algorithm really likes. So it's definitely more time consuming than it seems.
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Just because I think that if you go into the industry of personal branding on TikTok specifically, or any video platform, if you're going to go into it with, like it's time consuming and it's going to take so much time, and you see it almost more as like an extra or an add on to your business, then it's probably not going to be as successful. But if you see it, like the same amount of time that you would spend on sending out email newsletters or posting on social media, or like contacting and email new potential clients, when you think about like, oh shit, okay, today I have to spend 3 hours finding new customers for myself or for my business and emailing them, you're not going to have the same mentality. So why is it a problem, or why do we see it as too time consuming to spend 3 hours in our day to create content? Because if you do it well, it can be either equally effective or even more. So the first thing is definitely agreed. I can't tell you that creating content for social media is not time consuming. It is. But once we realize that it has either the same impact as other forms of marketing or even more, then you wouldn't, like normally we tend to push it to the back, like, oh, that's not the most important thing today. Let me rather focus on this and that. Once you add it a bit higher up on the priority list and you realize that it has the same or even a higher impact than other forms of marketing, then it wouldn't feel like that much time being spent or almost wasted,
Mm-hmm.
And just with your own content, my personal opinion is I don't think you have any reason to be insecure about your own voice or face on camera at all. And I've said this to you before. I think that you have, like the type of voice that once I hear you speak, like I want to listen, and you keep attention, and that's a really good strength, and you need to play to that. And especially because of that, you need to create more content where you speak, because you just are like one of those people that once you start speaking or someone hears your voice, you listen, and it just comes naturally. So I don't think that that's something you need to feel insecure about. And I'm sure once you start doing it more often and you continuously see results and you keep growing, then that insecurity will eventually go away. So that's just the one thing that I wanted to mention to you, is don't I mean, it's easy to tell someone, oh, don't be insecure about this, but it doesn't work like that. So I would rather just encourage you to keep doing what you're doing now, and I can guarantee that you will see results and the insecurity will go down after time.
Thank you. No, that's very nice. I'm going to blush. I feel like...
Oh, I definitely want tickets to your TED Talk whenever you do them, Rachel.
She's already done a few.
Have you?
Yes. She
What,
has.
TED Talks?
Yeah. Oh, TED Talk.
No, TED Talks. No, I definitely haven't.
Yeah, slightly different.
Sorry, I couldn't hear. I think it's just the difference in accent.
Oh yeah, you know, that's it. It's my Canadian accent that really just kind of ruined everything there for it. You know, the lack of, you know, specific cadence. It's fine.
I think it would be more fair to blame me. So I'm the one with the funny accent between 3 other people, but
right, but it's much easier to throw myself under the bus sarcastically than to throw other people under the bus, right? Like always take the absolutely.
Everything's your fault, always.
See, life is just easier this way.
Agreed.
Rachel, any sort of closing thoughts, questions, anything of the sorts? Did you enjoy yourself? I know you said you enjoyed yourself. Like, did you actually enjoy yourself this week?
Yeah, no, I actually did. You know what? Honestly, like, I think it's honestly something I'm going to stick with. And Carla, like the last point you made is so true. I think I did just put it on the back burner because I felt like in my mind it wasn't as important. But you're so right. And I also think it's like a good place to point people who might not necessarily know who I am yet. If they can like see my face more, like see me speaking more, they're going to trust me. And I do need to focus a lot on business development. Like I know that's something that's going to be like a long road ahead for me. So yeah, if they can check out my social media, or even if I put like videos up on my website or something, I do think that's actually going to help a lot. So yeah, no, I appreciate you pushing back on what I said, because that's actually like such a good point. I do need to think about it more from that perspective.
Good. Yeah, I think so far you're doing really well. And I think the quicker we start seeing personal branding as just an extra channel for business development or sales, then it's going to become a lot easier to put the same amount of time and effort into that channel. Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
Rachel,
thank you as always.
Thank you.
I don't even have anything else to say at this point. Like, you took on the challenge. You executed brilliantly. You've tripled your viewership numbers. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to find like any type of like constructive, like here's what you should work on. But like there's nothing. Everything's going well. You're heading in the right direction. Like awesome, great work.
Thank you.
My only piece of advice is I know that the challenge is supposed to end on Saturday. Don't end it on Saturday.
Yes.
Just, take the first week as 1 post per week. The next 2 weeks even, post twice a day. And then gradually continue it. But I don't want you to feel like, okay, personal branding was only a focus for 1 week. And now you're starting to build up an audience and a following, and then you just drop it because then you wasted your own time. So stick to it and continue challenging yourself and increasing week by week or even every second week. That's the main thing that I would like to challenge you specifically on, is don't leave it. Awesome. I see the boss in the chat.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the chat that's going on right now is we have Zav talking about his favorite show being on, and the super weird thing about this whole situation with Zav is like he could actually be on it right now, like he's supposed to be.
I feel like he's lying a bit, saying, "Oh, it's my favorite show," but I'm not on it.
Either way, Rachel, I will set you off here, but thanks so much for hopping up and talking about your week. It's awesome.
All right. Thanks. See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
It's been great.
Thank you. Bye.
Susan, I love that every once in a while, and like it's super intermittent, but there's a delay that comes in every once in a while, and it's great. So like,
See,
just
like,
bye. This is like 4 or 5 seconds late. It's fantastic.
Yeah, my network always goes to like yellow for some reason, and then it's green. So there's that delay that I'm just getting used to it.
Well, it keeps us entertained when you say hi or bye to someone like 5 seconds after everyone else.
Absolutely. So, Susash, you
Oh.
pinged all of the EIRs in Slack. So I know that we've got some technical issues with a bunch of them
Yes.
today. It's been a bit of a
Yeah.
challenge to get
There's
everyone
some
up and on board.
technical issues, and some people have exams apparently. So apparently season. So
Some people
What?
are having
actually,
technical
a couple of
issues.
them have exams. So I was like, yeah, and some are exams. Like they have at least 2 exams today. So I was like, okay, good luck on your exam. That's why
Everyone's like freezing on my side.
Yeah, no,
join the live.
everything just crashed for a second there, but Susa's
Yeah.
still delayed, so he's still going.
We'll catch you next week.
Oh, good old technical difficulties at any point of the day.
Yeah.
The good news is we do have Shamsia that has hopped into the backstage here, which is excellent.
Yay.
Yeah.
I'm excited because I've had quite a few
Yay,
conversations
Samsung.
with her during the week. So I'm excited to hear what's been happening.
Fantastic. Let me bring them up here. Hello. Oh, you are muted.
Hello.
Mute.
Nope.
No.
Technical
Nothing.
difficulties.
Yep, no problem.
Do you understand what she's saying?
Yeah, my lip reading has gotten
I
so
just
good.
see like this.
No, can't hear him at all. They're gonna leave and come back to try to reset everything.
Oh, that's what it means. Okay, cool.
Lip reading.
Got it.
I think that's that and a combination of hand motions. Like, Susash, you sat next to me when I'm trying to explain something. Like, there's a mild to moderate amount of flailing and like hand gestures that are generally associated with it.
Well, I think that's quite a talent because I suck at it.
It's
I
definitely
normally
something.
like just give people like a blank
It
stare.
is.
Like,
It is.
I don't know what she's
Could
saying.
not make out. I was just like, just doing this. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. Was able to decipher that. That's amazing.
It's what I'm here for.
Is
Hello,
this
can
a
you
hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Welcome.
We can.
Wow.
You made quite the entrance. So
Yeah.
welcome.
And it's always.
Well, that's it. Like, we all get the benefit of like testing all of the tech beforehand. Like, we hop into the stream, we're doing all the stuff backstage before. So, like, you just you hop in, and you're like, "Well, I hope everything works," because like, there's literally no other way for you to really test it before you get brought on.
Yeah, but I do test it. I think over prepare, and then when I'm in, it's like, oh yeah, it's all jinxed again. That's me and technology for you.
I think a good excuse for today is that it's Friday the 13th.
Wow,
So
see, it's in
maybe
my
that's
favor.
why. That's the
Mm.
reason why
Good
it didn't work out.
observation.
Not your fault.
Not my fault.
I mean, for what it's worth, I blame most things that don't go my way on the vernal equinox, like irrespective of what time of the year it is.
I don't know what that is, but okay.
I think it's on March 21st and December something.
I never heard of that. Is that a
It's an actual thing, right?
Yeah.
It has to do with like positioning of planets and all sorts of other stuff, but like in an actual like scientific capacity.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't even
like,
know when it is.
I think it's March 21st in December someday, and it's like day and nights are equal.
That fantastic. I believe you. I just liked the sound of vernal equinox. Whatever it represented didn't matter. But you know what? I'm happy to learn something today.
Yeah, and please don't take my word for it. Please Google it.
I mean, it sounds cool.
So how was the week? How did the challenge go for you?
Oh, well, I mean, I've had this conversation with Carla, and I think it's one of the most interesting challenges, but it is a big challenge for me because I have not been on social media forever, and I'm not good with technology, as you all are seeing. So there's so much to learn, and there's every
every bit from planning to writing down to actually the lighting, the look, and everything has to be so controlled that the first few days were, I mean, Emery kept talking about the gag reflex, but I was like, actually felt it, like when I'm on camera and I'm like, do I really have to do this? What have I gotten myself into? Is this really needed? Those are the kind of feelings I was going through, but I think I really pushed myself to make a couple of videos, and I just wanted to, the caption, I wanted it to read, please enjoy yourselves, have some humor, go with the flow. And because I went back to my videos much later and I saw that there's so many words I've missed. There are so many grammatical errors, not because I don't know how to speak, it's just that I was so nervous probably recording it. So that was the first few days, and my camera roll was like full. Like I was making so many copies of it. And as Rachel mentioned, like every word I was tripping over, I was just like re-recording it, or something I was not confident about, I was going back to it. So it has been a very difficult challenge for me personally. Yeah. And
right. So do you feel like it's more so just
that is sorry, like the reason I say that is because I have had the same issues, because when I try to do like a challenge like that, or not necessarily a challenge, but like for some work that I had to do some recording, the same feelings I went through, the same, like, I had to keep recording. So I understand you. That's why I said I hear you, not to kind of put you down anyway, but I understand.
As a side note, super quickly here, just to interject, I am going to tag in, we're so lucky. It's his favorite show, apparently. And it's so nice that we actually get to bring him on for a change. But apparently Zav has decided to join it. Well, and like after we have a conversation a bit more, we can talk about Zav and his level of bullshit associated with how much he loves hearing me speak.
I think this is like his 5th favorite show. Because if it was his favorite, he would have been here earlier.
Zav, what's going on, man?
Sorry, 1 second here. I'm on multiple calls right now, and having internet issues on top of that, which is not fun.
See, I always thought that I was good at multitasking, but I can just imagine Zav being on 3 separate phone calls. He's got a cell phone in each hand, and he's got someone on his headphones. He's just multitasking as hard as possible.
It's an art in of itself, man. You gotta hear like multiple voices at once and try and manage. Anyways, happy to be back for a hot minute. I've been watching. It's really good to see everybody more engaged, and just from the previous weeks till now, there's a lot more happening, which is what we wanted. So
absolutely,
that's awesome. And shout out to everyone else who's watching on the social media crew. I've been working with them closely for the past little bit to kind of clean up house on that end, and lots in the works. That's exciting to share. I'm gonna not share too much and just let it happen. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. So let's dig back into your week a bit here, Shamsia. So in terms of the type of content that you're trying to put out, like, did you find there was something that you could talk about, or a type of content that you're producing that you're a bit more comfortable with, or that sort of like spoke to you a little bit more?
Yeah, it's quite good that I had some interesting topics to talk about relating to my product and Haven Nutrition. And I was just going with that. But I realized it's not just the content, it's also the way you present it. It's the way you are putting yourself out there. And yes, you are not the expert in the field. So you're almost feeling like an imposter out there, talking about something that you've probably just heard, or you've curated the material. So you have to be very convincing to the audience. It's almost like a two-way traffic. Now you're like literally communicating with them. It's not a monologue. You're not out there just talking. I found that very interesting, because I had to modulate the way I was speaking, the way I was looking into the camera, the kind of words I was using, because I have a very, this is what I realized through the challenge, is a very stuck up way of speaking, or I'm not a very good casual talker. I don't use casual words. I don't have the knack for casual conversation. And that kind of seemed very difficult to break down my knowledge into more casual or more easy, simple, connecting, relatable ideas. So more than the topic that I was talking, I think this is what I'm working on. I do have some interesting ideas that I want to be associated with me as a brand, but I think it's still work in progress. Yeah.
So, Carla, did you have the opportunity to look through anything on Shamsia's stuff in the past week?
Yes, and I gave her some feedback, and she posted new stuff or sent it to me previously. The first thing that I want to address is not just directed at you, Shamsia, but also all of the EIRs, is everyone has the thing of almost feeling insecure about talking about their industry because I'm not the expert and, like, I don't know anything. And just in my experience, in my opinion, if I see someone calling themselves, oh, I'm an expert, I'm the expert in this industry or social media, I immediately call bullshit because no one really is. You're always going to have something more to learn. And if you're going to continue putting yourself at the back end because you don't know anything, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. No one's really an expert, no one really knows everything. But it's so much more valuable to just share what you know at the moment and what you're learning and learning from your audience. So that's a big thing. Like if I hear someone say like, oh, I'm not an expert at this, no one's a fucking expert at anything, honestly, in my opinion. I might be wrong. So someone that wants to fight me on it, they're welcome. But I think once like you might have expertise in something and a lot of knowledge on something, but once you call yourself an expert, that's like, oh, I know everything. I have nothing more to learn. And that's a mindset that no good entrepreneur will ever have because we always know that there's more to learn, there's more knowledge to gain, and you can grow. So I wouldn't limit myself ever to just be like, oh, I'm an expert at this, so I know everything, because you're not going to get there. And I think that's the big thing that causes a lot of insecurities with a lot of young entrepreneurs and also especially the EIRs in the program is like, oh shit, like I'm new in this industry, I don't know everything. So that makes me feel even more insecure to put myself out there and share this knowledge because what if someone that knows more than me sees this, or what are they going to think? But if you use that as an opportunity to rather be upfront and say, like, listen, I'm new in this industry. This is what I know. This is what I believe in. Let me know what your thoughts and comments are. Get them to engage with you. That way, number one, you're going to learn a lot more potentially. And also, secondly, you're not putting yourself on this pedestal that your followers or audience is also going to put you on this pedestal and you might not deliver because in the beginning stages of your business, you're not going to be on this pedestal like this expert in everything. So I think a lot of people have a lot of respect for being vulnerable and people just admitting like, listen, I have a big interest in this and I'm busy learning about this and this is what I know so far, but let me know what you know, let me know what you think and I'll incorporate it in that. That makes it so much more personal and authentic and they feel like they're part of the journey. And I want us to stop feeling like, oh, I'm putting myself on the internet, so I have to know everything. Like I can't be wrong about anything. I can't say anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. Just personally, like I have a lot more respect for someone that says, like, listen, I have interest in this and this is what I know. Let me know what you think. Or what do you know about this? Let's collaborate. Let's have a conversation about this. So that's the big thing. And also based on the videos that you've posted that I've seen is the actual content of what you say is really good, but don't feel like you need to put so much pressure on yourself to have everything right and everything perfect because it's never going to be that way.
Yeah.
So that's my feedback.
I always feel scared people are going to sue me for putting out wrong information or maybe making a mistake. Yeah.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. You're always going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Ideally not always put out wrong information, but every now and then it might happen. And like sometimes if I have to say something that I'm not 100% sure of, then there's nothing wrong with saying, listen, I think this is like that, or in my opinion, this and that. But you're not saying like, oh, this is how it is and this is the facts. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm a little bit unsure, I need to do a bit more research on it, but from what I know so far, this is my opinion on something. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying that, and people respect that a lot more than someone that puts themselves out there online acting like a know-it-all, and they might just be talking shit.
Yeah, that's actually a very valid point. Yeah. And the also struggle is like to try to relate your whatever the topic I'm talking about with the brand or the company that you're representing. So I am still working on that. And how do I, bring it up? I just don't want it to be like very abrupt. I'm just like, what, this is what we believe at Haven. This is what we want you guys to know that we believe or we are working on at Haven. So I'm still trying to make it a little more seamless and real that way.
Yeah.
I would comment a couple of things on that if you'd like. Carla will provide you with all the details, but just a high level. When it comes to brand story or the messaging of the brand or identity of the brand, this is the right time for it. So I would go in stages. I would start with, for example, before making a lot of documentations and putting a lot of those contents out, first take a step back, start with your about, just one paragraph. Think as a story, think as, so many different ways. You can be as creative as you want. You can come up with something completely made up, or you can have it, reference to real circumstances, situations, and make it more relatable, make it more realistic, depending on where you're taking the brand. Each one then sets the tone for the other documents that you make, other content that you make. And then the tone itself is important too. You have to remember, are you talking in a way that's casual, like you were saying, throughout? Or is it sometimes corporate, sometimes casual, and in between? Because the audience relate to that. So if maybe you're more comfortable with a semi-casual tone or more corporate tone, that's completely fine as long as it's consistent. So if I come back to your brand, I don't see something else, and I'd be surprised. It's like I see, let's say, Paul tomorrow, and I know Paul. I know Paul is my friend, colleague, and then tomorrow Paul shows up and he's like a completely different person. I would be like, wait, like what happened to Paul? So same as brands, we all have our identities, so that you want to maintain some level of consistency to build trust with people to come back and get the same thing. That's why sometimes when we look at franchises, now I'm taking it to the very macro, or like big chains, like whether it's a coffee chain or McDonald's that everybody knows internationally, right? Everything is the same. You don't want to go to McDonald's and see all of a sudden they have some new item on the menu. That's how they maintain it. So then when you're thinking about ad spend, marketing, they can maintain that, because if you change one thing, then you have to start making new content for that, new marketing for that. It costs you more. So the more seamless, the more consistent approach, the better on your pocket, the better, for the people to get to know you. And then over some period of time, that trust is built. So it's not a one time when you see something. Actually, I'll say one last thing and pass it on. There's a rule of 7 that I was taught by other mentors in sort of PR, especially, where typically the first 2 times you see something, any piece of information, there's no way you'll notice. That's how our brain works. The second 2 times after that, you will notice it, but you will forget. There's no way you'll remember it. And then the next 2 times after that is when you will notice it, you might remember it, but it's not going to be ingrained in your subconscious. And the 7th time is when you're like, it's an aha moment, or your brain registers it and you remember it, and then you can't undo it. That's why they take a lot of time before advertising or promoting something. The rule of thumb for that is also in PR, 3 months. Like a movie, we've all seen trailers come out 6 months in advance, a year in advance. There's a reason for that, because they want to keep getting you to see it until that 7th, 10th time for you to remember. And so it doesn't matter if you don't have the big budgets. Apply the science of it, and you will get the results. It's just like a formula.
Yeah, that is good. I'm going to be putting myself out there even more, at least 7 times this week. That's the goal.
Good takeaway.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I think that's why the challenge was devised that way. Probably.
But it's great to hear. And just a quick note on what Carla was saying in terms of being okay with not knowing. Really quickly, if anybody's interested, Virgin Group with hundreds of companies under their roster, that's what they stand for. That's why they're called virgins, because they didn't know anything and they embraced it and then they tackled it.
Makes sense.
Totally agree with you.
All right. Thanks, Zap.
Awesome.
It's gone now. It's our favorite
You just-
show that I'm going to
He
do.
cut
just
him out.
mic dropped in the middle of it. It's amazing.
I'm sorry, I had to step
That was
out
awesome.
because I needed a toilet break, but I'm back now. The other thing that I just wanted to mention to you, Shamsia, specifically, but also to the other ERRs that are listening, is when it comes to personal branding and just the content that you've been putting out is a lot focused on the actual business and the drive behind it and why you're doing what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, just in my experience and my opinion, again, not calling myself an expert, but from what I know, is when it comes to a personal brand specifically, the type of content that you've been putting out would be really good content for the actual business page and for the business social media, because it explains why you do what you do. But when it comes to personal branding, like I mentioned to Rachel earlier, a lot of people want to buy into the person first. So if you create a social channel just focused on Shamsia as an entrepreneur or as an activist for something specifically, and build an audience around that, and don't focus on your business or your product or whatever, naturally people are going to come to you and ask you, how did you get into this industry, or what do you do? And that makes it a lot less salesy in a way and a lot more organic, and you show your passion for what you do, and that will automatically just like attract people that would be potential customers for you. I'm not saying don't mention your product or business on your personal branding platform, whichever you choose, but keep a balance between it. Show the person behind it, whatever your personality is, but make it personal and relatable, because people are going to buy into you first. And once they get to know you as a person and how your personality is and what you feel passionate about, they're automatically going to connect with those same things and eventually want to know, what are you doing? Or, like, why are you so passionate about it? And that's when you showcase your business without it being so salesy upfront from day one.
Yeah, that has been a challenge for me, just to try to figure out how to showcase who I am and finding the right topics to speak, because I'm really like at loggerheads when it comes to that. I think I have to still work on that. Probably I will be texting you, and as you said, there are these topics that I want to talk, but I really don't know if that's going to engage the audience, because there might just be so many topics that I can talk about. I don't know.
Well, it's good if there's a lot that you can talk about. I would start off with just establishing your personal brand and explaining, why did you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Okay.
What was your motivation to, become an entrepreneur? What's the reason? And secondly, like, what do you feel most passionate about? Also throw in some personal info, not too personal if you don't feel comfortable, but just things like, oh, I live in this country and this is what I'm passionate about. These are my hobbies. Make it a little bit more personal, because that's why we call it personal branding, and it's not branding,
Yeah.
So you want to sell yourself to people, get people to engage with you and like you as a person, while still showcasing what you feel passionate about and what you're interested in, but not necessarily pushing a product or a service that you sell.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going
If
to
it
work
makes
on
sense.
that. Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's the big gap that's there, that's been in the videos, and probably the reason why it's looking very monotonous now to me, and I haven't got, like, I feel like, well, why make another video on this? Like, I need more, a little more creativity and bringing more ideas. Yeah, I think what you're saying, I'm going to make it a little more personal now. Yeah.
Yeah. The big thing, and I know it's easier said than done because I've done it before, so I know it's possible. That's why I'm willing to give you this advice. But I also know that it's going to take a few takes to do it. But I normally, like when I have to record a video and explain to people something about marketing, or if someone asks me, like, why did you decide to become an entrepreneur? Or how did you get into marketing? Instead of thinking of, okay, how am I going to answer this to generate sales or to turn this person into a customer, I like to just imagine, like, when you, because let's not lie, it's awkward to sit at a desk and speak to your phone or to a camera. It's weird. So I always imagine I'm speaking to my best friend or to my partner or to my mom, and imagining that person, someone that I personally know, that I'm comfortable with, they know my personality, and I imagine I'm speaking to my mom and I'm explaining to her why did I make the move of going out of, like a full-time job into freelancing or being an entrepreneur, and that way naturally that same passion and emotions and everything will come out. But once you start overthinking it and just get way too far into your own head about it, that's when things start seeming like it's rehearsed and you get nervous and you stutter and everything. So just really keeping it natural and speaking to your phone or your camera or your computer, whatever you're using to record, speak to it as if it's a person that you actually know, not just when it comes to the personal branding side, but even when it comes to explaining to people what your business is about, what you're doing, why you're doing it. Imagine that you're speaking to an actual person, and that way, when authentically that same passion and drive comes out in person, it will get picked up on camera. But if you're going to force it, that will also get picked up on camera and it won't have the same effect. So even if it means you have to put up a photo of someone behind your ring light and look at that instead of the camera, that also works really well. But just really putting in the effort of keeping it authentic and just speaking from the heart. And sure, you can have a script and know what you want to say, but like I also mentioned to you and also to Rachel earlier, I'm not a fan of having scripts and doing something word by word, because that firstly puts unnecessary pressure on you as the creator, but also it makes it a little bit less authentic, because when you write it, you might feel some way, and when it comes to actually speaking, you might want to actually say something else or you feel another way. But when you have a script, you're limiting yourself and you're putting yourself in this box. So I generally prefer knowing what I want to talk about, what are my main topics, have them just as bullet points on a post-it, put it on my ring light next to my phone. And that way, if you forget what you want to say, just look at what's the next topic, and from there, speak naturally and from the heart and keep it authentic, because people buy into that. And no one wants to listen to someone that's saying like some scripted speech online.
Yeah, I have been curating some people and just trying to study how they are talking, the pages, the topics, and how they approach the topic, and keep it more relatable. So probably I should be able to improve and adapt that to my page and my brand. Hoping.
And practice makes perfect. Something that I want to know from you, and Rachel, if you're still here, because you were on earlier, is I would be quite interested to know, when it came to personal branding and just looking at other entrepreneurs, where did you get your inspiration from? Like, who are the people that you look up to and look at their content and be like, wow, I wish I could be like this person, or this is what I'm aiming to achieve. If there is anyone, mention it, because it would be quite interesting. And if not, if you're just bringing it and doing it by yourself, that's also okay.
Yeah, I mean, not like specifically an entrepreneur, in just general pages that get a lot of like engagement, just because that's what I struggle with, right? Like being able to talk more, being more casual, be more less stuck up, more less scientisty, but a little more as an entrepreneur who's out there actually with the intention to talk to people and communicate with the audience. So I'm just looking at those pages and trying to learn and understand the pulse of that. Yeah. Some very just local influences. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And the rest of the ERRs in the comments, love to get some from them. Shamsia, what do you think are the biggest things that you want to improve on, and how can we help and support you best?
The video challenge, or in general about the whole journey? Anything?
Both.
I think I would want to know. I would definitely appreciate help in curating a personal brand for myself. I would want to know what is. I would want people to tell me, what is it that they want to hear me speak about when they see me. What do they, expect me to talk, or the topics that would interest them. Maybe probably, like for instance. I'm very passionate about horse riding, and I feel like, is there going to be an audience, and will they listen? What am I going to talk to them about? The English style of riding or the Western style of riding? How am I going to put it out there? So there's so much of thought process that goes into it, but I really want it to be more simple. I want to talk to them about, eat good food. Don't waste energy. Switch off your lights. Keep it simple. So I would appreciate help in like just designing a brand for myself. That would be really cool. Yeah. And then merge that. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, just one quick thing is that I think do what you're passionate about, because don't think about what people want to listen to, but think about what you want to talk about, and then find the people who want to listen to you, because that way you're not going to be bored, right? You're not going to be trying to please someone and be someone you're not. So focus on like what you're genuinely interested in, because then you'll have a ton to talk about, and those who are interested will listen to you.
Okay, that's that.
I agree. And also the topic that you mentioned, like you into horse riding and stuff. A lot of people, when it comes to personal branding as an entrepreneur, you feel like, oh, my personal branding needs to be only related to my business or my industry. And that's not true. If you're passionate about horse riding or about cooking or whatever, that's just another way for you, firstly, to express your interest in other industries, and for you to be passionate about something and teach it to other people, and at the same time increase your audience. So just because your business is in one industry doesn't mean that your personal brand online has to 100% only align with that. You can 100% still talk about horse riding or whatever else. And just when it comes to like getting feedback from people, Instagram stories is the best way to do it. It's just asking people straight up, hey, have you been enjoying the new content I've put it out? Put a poll on, or do a Q&A and ask people, what type of content would you like to see from me? Get people to answer. And once you get those answers from them, that's going to really spark a lot of motivation and inspiration from your side. But you don't have to keep everything relevant to your business. Obviously, there's still a fine line, like don't go overboard into like illegal stuff or drunk dancing on tables and stuff. There's still a fine line being, like professional and personal, but including just some parts of your personal life and your personal hobbies and interests is a really good thing when it comes to personal branding.
Yeah, that's good. There was this other thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Like on Instagram, it's like getting followers is very slow. So I felt like just posting stories is not getting what I want. So maybe I should try getting people to talk to me, maybe do some live interviews, with some people who are doing good in their field. What do you think about that? I have approached a couple of people, but then when they see the number of followers I have, probably that just deters them or whatever.
So with Instagram and growing your followers, Instagram stories is a really great way to increase your engagement, but keeping in mind that most of the time your stories are only going to get shown to people that actually follow you already. There are some tricks like um, showing a location or hashtags in your story, but making the color of the text the same color as your background. That's a sneaky way of doing it, so that it will still show up under locations and hashtags, but people that view the story don't see it. So it doesn't look so obvious and prominent that you're trying to promote and show a story to more people. So that's one thing. But I would recommend maybe first then trying to increase your followers before you start focusing on things like lives or doing Q&As with people. And the best way to increase your following is firstly looking at the hashtags that you're using. I'm not sure your account, if it's on a personal account, the first suggestion would be to switch it over to a professional account or a business or creator so that you can get insights, because that way you're going to be able to look at every post and see how many people sees it, but also where are they coming from. Are they coming from, your current followers? Is it new people? Is it from the explore page? Are they finding you through hashtags? And by looking at that, you're going to know what's working best for your account. And with hashtags specifically, that's how you're going to end up on the explore page. So really analyzing those analytics, you'll be able to tell what works and what doesn't, and that's how you're going to grow your following, but also at the same time engaging with other accounts. So first, you're going to have to establish what is your target audience, like what type of followers do you want. Once you know that, go find other Instagram accounts that have those followers and go interact with their accounts, comment on their posts, go like it, go follow them, put yourself out there, because the chances of someone just coming to find you versus if you're active on their accounts and you support them and them following you is a lot bigger than just sitting back and being like, oh, let's hope that they're going to find me. It doesn't work like that. So you have to go and engage with other accounts. But again, quality over quantity. You want to engage with the right type of account. You want to engage with accounts that are potentially customers or distributors or whatever for your business. Then once you've grown your following, then people would be a lot more likely to do lives with you. But also, if I don't know exactly what the topic of the live sessions or videos are that you want to do, but I mean, that's why you're part of a platform like Darkhorse, is there's so many other EIRs and coaches, so take advantage of it.
Yeah.
If you think that there's another coach or an EIR, I can guarantee you they won't say no to go live with you on Instagram or on Facebook. So once you've established what you want to do, reach out to people and be like, hey, let's do a session on our own and collaborate. Because at the end of the day, everyone does have their own projects, but we also still a team and we want to help each other and encourage each other and see each other grow. So nothing's stopping you from just reaching out to another EIR or even one of the coaches and getting them involved in what you want to do.
Wow, I didn't even think of it that way. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to start sending out invites to Paul, Carla, Susawish, and the rest.
Yeah,
That's all that I want is more invites to things and to talk to entrepreneurs.
I mean,
you're always
Paul
welcome.
is super eager to, create his online presence. So I think he should be the first one that you reach out to.
Yeah. And personally, I really like talking to people. I want to hear their stories. And I think that's something that I would enjoy as a person, because it's not just about me talking. I want people to talk to me also and talk to my audience.
Conversation.
Yeah. I would
so
really
if you're
enjoy
struggling to get external people, start with who you know and who's already in your network. Start with them. And after a while, once you've built up credibility and you have more content, if you reach out to a stranger and they go onto your page and they can see that, oh, actually, she's had conversations with other people, they're going to be a lot more likely to say yes to you, and that way you're going to grow. So take advantage of the people that you already know.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, that's like a light bulb now. Thank you. I'm going to explore that. And that's a very good idea for my brand. That's something I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Paul, Susas, I feel like I've been speaking a lot. So if you wanted to say
No,
something.
you're the expert. So
Yeah, I mean,
We're-
I'm
we're
just
learning.
sitting here. I'm enjoying you driving the bus right now. Susash and I are looking at the windows. We're just having a great time. But I mean, I think that your insight's always really interesting because I feel like, you know, marketing gets really convoluted, especially when it comes to personal branding. Like, it's really easy to say that, you know, there's thousands of ways to do it. There's, you know, hundreds of KPIs. There's a ton of different methodologies on how to put it all together. But somehow you make it seem really simple, I think, is sort of the... I'm not going to say unsettling because I think that's the wrong word for it, but like I'm sort of looking back over like my whole experience in terms of branding and whatever else, and it's just like, oh yeah, like if I would have met Carla 10 years ago, like I'd absolutely be influencing things over here. Like it's so easy. Like just go and be yourself and do all these things. It's like, well, yeah, but things, Carla, the things and the insecurities, and no, you know.
Paul, those are just excuses. To be honest with you, if you don't want
love her
something
answer.
or you don't want to do something, you're always going to find a reason to not do it. You're always going to find an excuse, or why can I not do this? And you keep yourself away from it. So until the day that you decide that I actually want to pursue this, then you'll follow the advice. But if you don't honestly want to, you're always going to find an excuse.
You know, I don't know if anyone's ever told you this, Carla, but you should write a book.
I think she is.
No way.
Oh, I love that.
I could never.
Anyone else comments for Shamsia so far? I mean, overall, it sounds excellent. You know, and you know, huge sort of kudos, props, whichever, you know, methodology of explanation that you would like. But you know, great job. I know it's super tough to put yourself out there and go through everything, but you're working through it, and it's another thing that you've spent a week doing that I don't think that anyone kind of expects that they were doing a few months ago, kind of thing. So awesome job so far.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the
Well
encouragement.
done.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll say bye to Shamsia for now until later.
Take care, Shamsia.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. There are a few comments here that I missed, but I can't scroll down again.
Yeah, I actually
can't scroll down or
posted one
up?
of them. You cannot scroll down. I have
Down.
the same problem, but
Yeah, I can't
I
scroll
posted it in the
down.
private chat, so you guys can read it out.
Oh,
Maybe.
did you?
I have
Yeah.
all of the access. Fear not.
Oh,
So
You
let's see how much
that's
of
how
this.
we do.
Let's see how much of this will actually show on here. Yeah, it's all of it. So at Coaches, do you think that you can be a successful entrepreneur without doing any personal branding? So having branding and social media presence only for your product service and not necessarily for yourself. Carla's talked a lot, so I'm going to go first.
Oh, wow. Go for it. I would love to hear what you think.
I think that it's super relative, right? I think that, you know, when I was sort of, I'm not going to date myself too much, but when I was coming up in the entrepreneurial world, I think that marketing and social media was I've gone through all of the evolutions of it, right? Like I had my, you know, educational Facebook account back in the day, and I'm pretty sure I had a MySpace somewhere. And, you know, I kind of hopped off of it, you know, for reasons I mentioned before in other streams. But like I've kind of stopped doing it, and I've avoided personal branding. I think that the counterpoint to that is that there's a ton of value that comes out of personal branding. But my background outside of like switching into operations and BI and whatever else, but like at the core, I'm a salesperson. So like I may not have the marketing and the branding because I've always had people that do that, you know, for the business, for whatever else. But my sort of specialty or my strength is just in sitting and talking to people. And I think that that's where a lot of, at least my successes come from, is, you know, larger B2B or enterprise kind of deals that get put together. A lot of that sort of existed outside of the realm of marketing for the most part, right? Like a lot of it has to do with sort of the good old fashioned cold phone calls, meet at networking events, all those very stereotypical, like entrepreneurial kind of things. So I don't feel like I don't even know if I consider myself successful at this point, but I also feel like, you know, I don't think that it's necessarily held me back from being accomplished or, you know, creating companies or succeeding in some capacity. I do think it could have been more or better or less of a struggle. I think that that's absolutely the case. So I don't think that it's really, one or the other. I think the difference is kind of like the percentages, right? Like, could it have been 25% easier with an hour or two a week? Yeah, probably. Am I going to admit that to Carla? Of course not. No, I couldn't have done it with marketing or social under any circumstances. This was 100% on me. But I think that it absolutely would have made my life easier. But I think that's part of at least what makes my sort of journey at least somewhat interesting to hear about, is there was very little that I didn't try to take on myself. And for better or worse, that's kind of how it ended up being. Like, it was a lot of my dislike for social media that I sort of did what I had to do in spite of it, opposed to in conjunction with it. So it was just like, no, I'm going to be stubborn and do it without posting on Facebook or whatever. I was like, even like a couple of my first companies, like, didn't have LinkedIn pages. We didn't have anything, great websites, great everything else. But like, our CEO was our SEO was excellent. And I feel like my life would have been a little bit easier with social media, but I don't think that it necessarily would have been different. But I also sort of admittedly think that in the world that we live in now, that's not as much of a luxury, I think.
Right. I just
agree
wanted
with a
to.
lot. Sorry,
Carla.
No, go.
Okay, cool. I was actually that was the exact point I was thinking, is that, when I started, it was a different world, I think. And we live in a world where the world changes very, very fast. Where, again, like, not to date myself, but, I also went through those phases, right? Like, social media was not a thing when I was in university, when I was like starting my first job. But, when it's 2021. So when you look at it from that point of view, it's a different world. So you need to be there especially as a brand, it must be there. You as an entrepreneur, that depends. Because, like we already kind of talked about, is the trust factor, right? So because how do people know you, right? Like, who is behind them? And Zav covers some great points about the rule of 7. That's an important point from a brand point of view. But it also helps to have that entrepreneurs behind, like a face behind that brand. For example, if you look at Facebook, like, the moment I say Facebook, you're thinking Mark Zuckerberg. The moment I say Tesla or SpaceX, you're thinking Elon Musk. And again, these are brands. People have those, and they're very successful people, but they also created their brand behind it. And way back in the days, maybe if you're running some companies like Warren Buffett doing stock and whatnot, you may not have needed that. But in today's world, I think it's very important. So that's something very important to keep in mind. So I would say that it's much more important in today's world than it was back in the day. So keep that in mind. That said, sorry, Carla, to interrupt you. Please go ahead.
I have to say that I'm quite impressed with the two people that like personal branding the least to have opinions that I actually agree with. Wow. So the way that I see it is very similar to what you just explained, is personal branding and linking a specific face or personality or whatever to a brand. It's the same as 50 years ago. Everyone used to, let's say, for example, advertise in the newspaper. And then from there, all of a sudden, it went to magazines, and then it's billboards, and then it's that and that. I'm sure at those times, I'm young enough to not have lived there, but I'm sure people had the exact same questions, like, is it worth it? Like, is it really going to impact things? But if you look at, like, maybe after the first 2 or 3 years after a new way of marketing your business launches, people are very hesitant, but eventually everyone gives in and they start doing it because they see that, shit, okay, well, that's what's working. So whether you're comfortable with it or not, if it works, it works. And that's how I see personal branding. It's something that doesn't come naturally to anyone, although a lot of us that do personal branding might come across as, oh, I'm so comfortable in front of camera and I have no problem with, like taking videos or photos of myself. It's not true. Everyone's faking it. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's the big thing that, somewhere along the line, people are going to just accept that shit. Okay, well, that's such a big part of marketing, just as the transition of going from traditional marketing into digital or social. A lot of people were fighting against it and not sure, does it work, does it not work, how do I do this? And I see it the same way as the same transition now happening from, like normal traditional marketing with a combination of digital and now adding personal branding into it. So it's not to say that you're not going to be successful without it, because there's so many businesses and startups that are successful without it, but it's like like an extra turbo or like a big head start, and it just gives you another extra channel. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't say that yes, you should do it, or no, don't do it because whatever reasons, but it's a whole extra channel of potential awareness and sales and branding. So if you do have the opportunity and you're staying away from it just because you're shy or you're scared or you're unsure, I don't think that those are valid reasons, because that's part of being an entrepreneur. Is you're going to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You have to be uncomfortable. You have to grow and learn. So it's going to be fucking scary at the beginning, but eventually you're going to get over it. And I say that from experience. Believe it or not, but I'm actually like, I'm very introverted and I'm shy and I don't like speaking to people, but I've conditioned myself to get into that when it's needed, just because I've seen results in my business. But still, whether you do it or you don't, it's not going to be like a make or break. Just in my opinion, if you do it, bonus. If you don't, you might just have to focus a bit more and allocate a bit more budget to the other marketing channels to make up for the side that you're choosing to lose out on. But that's my opinion. But also with personal branding specifically, if you're either going to do it well and do it right and be successful at it, and if you're going to be shit at it, then rather leave it and focus that energy and budget to things that you know that you work, because it can be damaging to a brand as well if it's not done properly. I hope that answers your question, Tabi.
and I always
Very
think that it's
long-winded.
well, and I always think that it's an interesting sort of conversation overall, right? Because any of the marketing principles that we're talking about, especially with social now, somebody mentioned Apple. I think it was Susa Hush beforehand, and at least from my perspective, when you sort of look back at the first generation of iPods and the iPhone launch, like that was a very weird way to do marketing by comparison to like what was the norm at the time, right? Like when you
And
have
now it's like nothing.
right, but you have this guy wearing a turtleneck that's sitting and making these long-winded, like life-changing presidential-esque type of speeches about things that
Yeah.
people didn't even genuinely know that they wanted. Like I remember the first iPhone coming out, and like the specs weren't as good as other phones on the market, but like there was this brand and like this thought and like this prestige almost that's associated with the phone that came out, and a lot of that derived specifically from the personal branding of this.
Exactly.
Feel free to take whatever adjective you want, because there's good and bad things about the way that Steve Jobs operated. But the one thing was there was an unbelievable amount of personal branding that had such a massive effect on their business to actually push them to where they are today. Because like Apple had its ups and downs, and like there were some really terrible times, when they were competing with Microsoft on a bunch of stuff back in the day. And there's actually a movie called Pirates of Silicon Valley, which is super interesting, and it goes through a bit of the history between both. Highly recommend it.
Yep, it's a must watch.
Absolutely, like absolutely fascinating for how close like Jobs and Bill Gates were, and they were competing in the same space because they they emerged as like the titans of like new innovation at some point, with Windows and Microsoft being on the OS side and Apple trying to go onto the peripherals at some point. But it's absolutely fascinating. But it was a very small community. Like Microsoft did no marketing, barely at all. They went on large enterprise sales the same way that I kind of functioned. And Carla is absolutely more job-esque in terms of how they function. But as it sits now, trying to stand out is tough, and it evolves a lot more consistently now. Susahash, what's the law of hardware improvement relative to time? Like
I
it's
think
not
it's every
Murphy's law.
5 years. Yeah, it's Murphy's law. It's every 2 years it doubles in size or whatever.
Right. So the whole
Yeah.
theory behind Murphy's
Computational
law
power.
is, yeah,
I know Murphy's law of like dropping a piece of toast. Is that it? Like, does it end on the butter side or the plain side? I don't know.
No, I don't think
Explain.
that's the same Murphy's law.
Experts.
No.
No.
No, that's
Okay,
that's
no.
other
No.
Murphy.
Never
I think that's EY, not just Y.
Yeah.
You see,
So
these are the times that I should actually shut up. So, Sushas, please answer.
It's fabulous. So
Yeah.
the whole theory on the hardware side is that hardware improves at a set rate, and that rate improves over time. So like it's a function that compounds essentially, right? So it's the same type of thing that is now being applied to the way that advertising and marketing work. It's the rate of evolution that used to be like newspaper ads were huge for 100 years, and they were still Moores. Thank you, Tubby Mash. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is Moores. Murphy's is
Moore's law.
absolutely inaccurate. Oh. But the whole theory with marketing is that the rate in which it evolves is now getting condensed quicker and quicker the longer that it goes around, right? So newspapers were huge for a while, and then it was television, and then it was color television. Like radio was in the midst of that. But like the life cycle of each platform has now been shrunk, and it gets quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker the longer that we go. Yeah. So it's super interesting, and it's really, really difficult now. And I think one of the reasons that I look at marketing and I'm mildly terrified of anything at this point is strictly because like the effort to keep up is tough. It's a huge challenge, I think, from my end. I mean, if I did nothing else, if my job was marketing and social and everything else, and to understand that world, I think it becomes much easier. But it's really difficult for entrepreneurs now, I think, to kind of take that on by themselves. I know that I outsource all of our marketing, our content generation, pretty much everything that gets done. We bring people in.
Who are
What
you
is this
outsourcing it to?
face?
Because it's not to us. That's why I'm putting my face. Who are
Oh,
you
because it's not to
outsourcing
you?
it to? Yeah.
Oh, it's so inconvenient. I can't remember why that was. But overall,
That's my intended face.
but overall, like fundamentally understanding how something works, and I think this is sort of the big takeaway from the course of the day, at least from my perspective. The big thing from my end is having a basic understanding of how something works is really, really important. It's like when you look at product development for the companies and the EIRs that are out there that are actually building a platform or building a tech piece that is associated with their business, you don't need to know how to code. Like it's helpful, but like if you bring someone on, you have to have a basic understanding of how everything works. Ideally more than a basic understanding, but like you just have to have that base level of knowledge in order to effectively even talk to other people about it. So I don't program, I don't code anymore. I used to do like scripting and a bunch of stuff way back in the day, but I have a pretty good understanding of how software works, how logic works, how it all sort of gets put together, because it's sort of fundamentally critical for me to be able to have a conversation with developers and have to be somewhat informed. I don't have to do all of it, but I've got to be somewhat informed. So when it comes to things like marketing, although I avoid it like the plague, I have to have a base level of, what is the data-driven insights that we're looking at? How do we position? What is the branding and what are the differences between platforms? How do we optimize our tech stack relative to what's going on? And you start looking at how individual channels serve a purpose. Are we doing like ATL advertising? It's above the line, or it's just for brand recognition. We're trying to put our name in a bunch of places. Are we trying to convert to actual sales leads and understanding intention relative to messaging? Then at least you can start having a conversation with marketing people. Like you don't have to do all the work yourself at some point, but like you need to be able to have this very basic fundamental understanding of dozens and dozens of things in order to run your business effectively. So that when you hire someone, it doesn't matter how smooth that they can have a conversation or whatever else, you at least know what results you're looking for. And you can lose a little bit of knowledge in the execution because like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how you get there, in my opinion, as long as you achieve the results that you're looking for. So I think the big thing with marketing is just have that basic level of understanding and how it gets put together so that you can at least consciously make the best decision for your business.
I agree. And something that I just think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially myself, when I started out, is we have this thing of like, I have to be a jack of all trades. Like I need to be equally good at sales and at marketing and at just operations and project management and product development and everything. It's not realistic. So figure out what your strengths are, what you're really good at, and do that really well instead of putting 10% into each different aspect of the business. Figure out what you do really well, focus on that, and outsource the rest or get people to assist you with the rest. But it's not possible to be equally good at all the different aspects and things that go into having a successful business.
And I think that's a really important distinction when you say that, because I think that being a jack of all trades is really important, but not to the extent that most people understand. That you were like, you know, you're playing the bass drum and you have a tambourine and a harmonica and you've got all the things built around you. Like that's not necessarily it. It's just having a basic understanding of how all these things work. For most people that aren't entrepreneurs, you can be a software engineer and you can just code and like everything else is irrelevant, right? Like you go to your code review every day, as long as you do your stand-ups, as long as you get, you know, your process is done. That's it. Like that's the extent of your knowledge. That's the extent of what you actually care about in a given day, is hitting all of those metrics. And you know, the same thing's kind of applicable with everything else, right? Like salespeople, from my experience, genuinely don't give a shit about any other part of the business. All they care about is people signing. Like that's it. They just want to close. Like that's what they're there for. It's a very one-dimensional focus. And it leads to people being excellent at that singular thing. And you still need to be excellent at a couple of things as an entrepreneur, but you need to at least be aware. And you have to be aware and mindful of dozens of other things, because, you know, at the end of the day, and I'll use Rachel as a great example, when it comes to, you know, building boxes, there's a whole process for that. There's a whole way to do manufacturing and logistics and whatever else, but like, you know, kind of a lot of time. But there's also the marketing side, and then there's the sales side, and then there's sourcing, and then there's any of the tech stacks. Like there's all of these things that kind of go into something that seems really simple of like, yeah, we just send awesome products to people. And like, fantastic. Like how that's executed, there's 1,000 ways to do it. And there's a lot of elements that kind of go into that, and you can't do all of them forever. Like there's a point where you hit critical mass of like, you need to sleep at some point. And, you know, when you're looking at outsourcing or when you're looking at bringing other people in, you at least know what questions to ask. And you at least hopefully know when there's a good or a bad answer outside of it. Because, you know, as much as I'd love to say that the reason that I'm kind of sitting here still as an entrepreneur and not just like being an analyst in a cubicle somewhere, is because you have to know the right questions to ask and, you know, who to go to for help. I think that makes the biggest difference. You know, there's a huge gap between companies that have good advisors and ones that don't. In terms of success, it's massive. It's like between 6 and 8 times depending upon industry. According to CDI, who is far more qualified than I am. But I think that, you know, at least understanding that conceptually to start off, when it seems like there's thousands of things that you can do right now and there's way too many directions and feeling overwhelmed, which absolutely happens. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, probably 6 or 8 of the entrepreneurs out of 10 that I work with on a regular basis, most of them have taken time off, and most of them have needed to recharge because, you know, the world's opening up a little bit more, and everyone's just been head down for so long that you know, you just get burnt out and you just get overwhelmed, and like, the work doesn't stop is always good. And Never. Unfortunately. I have talked a whole bunch now, so now it's up to Carla and I to be quiet. Susahash, you've got about 45 minutes to fill. We're going to go take it easy.
I actually do have something to say.
Excellent. Yes.
Go for it.
Just to add to what you said, Paul, like as you were explaining about just like the whole jack of all trades thing, I have quite weird ways that I see things in my mind, and I make strange references. So if it doesn't make sense to everyone, it's fine, because I know my mind's weird. But the way that I see it is like someone, you know, like you're the entrepreneur and you're starting a band. It doesn't mean that you have to be 100% the best guitarist and the bassist and play drums and be the best vocalist. Not at all. But as the owner or entrepreneur, you have to be able to note out what is good bass and what is good drumming and what is good guitarists, and be able to guide them. But it doesn't mean that you have to be as good as that person, but at least know and be able to establish, oh, this is good and this is not that good, and this is where you can improve or maybe change that. So have some sort of basic knowledge on all the aspects of your business or of your band. But it doesn't mean that you have to be the best or the experts in every single instrument that gets played in this band. That's
an
basically how
excellent
I
analogy.
understood what you said.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
be Dave
I love
Grohl.
it.
Yes.
Be
Well, he's
Dave
the
Grohl.
best. I would love to be him anytime.
Absolutely.
Besides, the next 15 minutes are all yours.
Well, that's all the time we have for today, guys.
I really like that metaphor. I actually wrote it down because I'm like, you know what? That's actually really good. Like, that's eloquent. I'm a huge fan of that.
No, but that's
Right.
it. Like you both touched on very important points. It's in a company you're not gonna know everything. Like I'm not an accountant. I'm not expert on everything, but I have to work with it. I'm not a lawyer, but I have to understand when a contract comes in, what
Just
you're
have
dealing with.
basic knowledge on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you have to go educate yourself, and it's that time you have to take, and that I think is part of the entrepreneurial journey. And if you ever are in front of a VC, they're going to ask you so many questions. They're going to ask you about your numbers, about your quarterly growth, and this and that, and you have to understand what they're talking about, because a lot of time people get into this fallacy where they think, oh, I have this great idea, and I'm just going to do this, and that's it. But that works like very little, like maybe 1% of the time that becomes a hit, but you cannot. That's not a repeatable process. For a repeatable process, you need to understand all the different parts, and you need to be able to, like you kind of said, I love your example, Carla. It's like orchestrating, right? You're the master. You're just, exactly.
My note says orchestra entrepreneurship.
Same.
So that's it, So it's understanding that, and also having common sense of if you're in the tech space, how things are working, or if which industry you're in. Understanding that industry is key. Speaking of which, I should Toby Mash corrected us. It's Moore's law, not Murphy's law. And I know I was like, yeah, it's Murphy's law. But yeah, it's that understanding that, hey, technology improves every 2 years, and the capacity or the ability increases by 2, whereas the cost goes by half. So if you have that kind of understanding of your space, and then going off of that to kind of predict something that hasn't happened yet, having that level of in depth in your industry is the key. That's what distinguishes you from becoming a successful entrepreneur, and orchestrating all the different parts and putting the right people in the job. So if you understand that in 5 years this technology will be awesome, so hiring that right developer or that right marketing people to be able to push your product and develop that product for the right time is very important. And I always think of Wayne Gretzky's. I don't know, Carla, if you know, but he's a famous Canadian hockey player, and he always had this saying:
Just hockey
player. Why would I know?
He is like the famous hockey player. He is not a famous. He is the famous hockey player.
Like he's the rock star. He's like the.
I don't even know a hockey player. Never mind.
All right, so tune in next Monday for my 4-hour dissertation on hockey and how it helps you.
Oh shit! Exactly. I have a meeting then. Sorry, I won't make it.
You asked me why we haven't hired you yet? Shocking.
Funny enough, I tried playing hockey for 1 year in high school, but
so his code is go where the puck shoot where the puck has been, right? So in terms of think where the ball is going, not where it has been. So think about where it's headed. So that's kind of the analogy, right?
Love it.
Always keep that in mind, and that's kind of the part where we tie it all back in, is that your job as an entrepreneur is orchestrating so that and moves forward where it's going to happen in the future, so that you can build for it today. And yeah, that's kind of to bring it all together to Toby's question, right? That about what do you do as an entrepreneur? Do you brand yourself or not? It depends, but where is your industry going? Ask yourself that question, and I think you'll find your answer.
Yep.
And how are you going to adapt to it and stay with it and compete with other people in your industry?
Yep. And the one takeaway is don't not do something because you're spiteful.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I do have a proposition for the two coaches here. I think, should end a little bit early today. I know it's different. It's a little bit outside of the general norm of how we run stuff.
Going overtime, yeah.
But like
You have to
Emery's not going to
compensate.
pay me to go over this week, so like there's no point anymore.
I feel like the amount of times that we've gone overtime, the least that we can do is for one to end 10 minutes earlier.
You know, half of me was like, I was
Just to
sitting
make
here and
up of it.
I was thinking about it this morning too, and I was like, what if we did a stream for like 17 minutes? And like just to like add it all back up and be like, all right, we're all square. It's great. We'll reset twice a year. It'll be fine.
Yeah. No, I think it's fair.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's fair.
Well, Susash, Carla, thank you so much as always. It's always a pleasure. It's been
Thank
fun.
you, Paul, for hosting and managing all the behind the scene things.
It's incredibly complicated work. Literally nobody else is qualified to do it. It's like riding a bicycle while juggling and explaining entrepreneurship. So it's not a big deal. But thank you, everyone.
We wouldn't be here without you, so thank you.
I'm sure, and just a theory, but I'm sure that the person that's been a system architect and software engineer for 15 years can figure out the 7 buttons it takes to go live on Restream.
The 3 musketeers from Samsia.
Just take the compliment, Paul.
Yeah, that's it. My insecurity for marketing stems from taking compliments. I can literally sit and talk to people endlessly. Either way, wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
We will see you all next week.
Questions. Thank you. Take care. Bye.